Welcome to the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. Today, we are diving into one of the most enduring mysteries and tragedies in American history, the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald. On the 50th anniversary of its loss, award-winning journalist and best-selling author John Bacon brings us the definitive account in his new book, The Gales of November, the untold story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, with more than 100 interviews conducted with families, friends, and crewmates of the men who were lost. Bacon paints an unforgettable picture of the ship, the storm, and the human stories at the heart of the tragedy. John Bacon has written 14 books, including 7 critically acclaimed national bestsellers, and he joins me today to talk about the mighty Fitz, the Great Lakes' role in America's economic rise, and why this story still resonates after a half century. John, welcome back to the Speaking of Writers podcast.
Thank you, Steve.
So, what first drew you to this story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, and what inspired you to write the definitive account now on the 50th anniversary?
Sure. Well, kind of the same thing. Certainly, I was interested in the mystery of it, as you said already, and the history of it, the Great Lakes economy, and how it was Silicon Valley before Silicon Valley. What really drove me were the 29 men on board, the jobs they had, the lives they led on board and on shore, and also the families that they left behind 9 months out of the year. So I want to get to all that for this book, and I managed to get lucky and get to 14 of the 29 families. 6 crew members had been on the ship before it went down because all 29 men were lost that night. These are guys, some of them, 2 of them that year, who knew the captain, the crew, you name it. And then one guy on the Arthur Anderson, Rick Barthuli, probably the last surviving member of that ship's crew from November 10th, 1975. That's the ship that was chasing the Edmund Fitzgerald that night. And he's as close as we can get to an eyewitness, basically. So those people have never talked to a reporter before, and they comprise truly the untold story that I'm telling.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the intro, you conducted more than 100 interviews for this book. When did you realize that there were still stories, insights, and emotions that hadn't yet been told publicly?
Oh, that was pretty quick. I got to the families 3 years ago initially, and then we did, again, probably 5, 10, 15 interviews with each of them along the way. And very quickly you realize these stories have never been told anywhere else. I've got a stack of books behind me on the subject, of course, and they're all basically trying to figure out what happened to the ship. And none of them talk to these people. So once you hear these stories, and you've read the stories, of course, they're pretty amazing and humanize the story quite a bit. And also just add to, frankly, the drama of what happened when you realize what the stakes are, truly. So that was pretty early on. You realize this is important.
The Fitzgerald has become almost mythic in American culture. What do you think keeps this story alive after so many decades?
Great question. I'd say a few things. One, the song, unmistakably, of course. Without the
Yeah.
song, we're not writing a book. So I'm not talking about it now. 2, the mystery of it. We talked about that already, too. And no one's entirely sure what happened because there are no eyewitnesses of it. 3, the fact that, incredibly, from 1875 to 1975, there were 6,000 commercial shipwrecks on the Great Lakes. Not rowboats, but the big ones. And not one since. Not one since Edmund Fitzgerald. So it tells us that everyone knows one of the 6,000. That's because of the song. And 2, this is the last one we know about. So that puts more focus on it, kind of like 9/11, pretty much. And finally, I'd add a more elemental aspect. Humans and boats in trouble is so inherent to our makeup as human society. Noah's Ark, man, that's how far back you go back. Titanic, Lusitania, and of course this one. This is probably the second most famous shipwreck in the world behind Titanic. So I think something very elemental about guys in a ship fighting for their lives against the elements.
You write about how the Great Lakes region was once the heart of the American economy. Can you talk about the importance of shipping during that post-war boom?
Sure, people might not believe that now that we call it the Rust Belt,
Yeah.
but nobody's calling that the Rust Belt between 1945 and 1975. After the war, when you turn the arsenal of democracy back to commercial production, it's an unbelievable 3 decades that just dominated this industry like no other, the automotive. And from the automotive, everyone else is kind of attached at that time. So in 1958, when the ship was launched, the Edmund Fitzgerald, that is. And the Forbes 100 biggest companies, one was General Motors, three was Ford, seven was Chrysler, and 37 of the top 100 were all connected to Detroit. The automakers, the tire makers, of course, Firestone and others,
Right.
oil producers, the glass, the windshield makers in Toledo. It just kept on going like this until finally, here's a fun fact for you. In 1960 census, which Great Lakes city was bigger than Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, Nashville, Tennessee, and San Jose, California? And Steve, you might know since you read the book, but the answer is Toledo, Ohio. And you can win bar bets with that baby right there.
Yeah. I want to talk about the ship here, the Fitzgerald. Such a remarkable ship, John. A record setter, and as you describe, a combination of heavyweight, sprinter, and workhorse, too.
That's exactly right. When it launched on June 7th, 1958, it was 729 feet long. And here you go for your video, guys. How about that one? I got a
Nice.
little model right here. Sorry about your audio listeners. It was the longest in the Great Lakes. And 729 feet is as tall as a 73-story skyscraper. I mean, that's how big these things are. It could carry the most cargo. It was one of the fastest. It broke every record for fastest cargo, biggest cargo on one ship, biggest cargo loads for a season. Again and again and again, just kept on breaking its own records, just like you said. Heavyweight, sprinter, workhorse, it did it all. And incredibly, it was also the most luxurious ship on the Great Lakes, and that seems oxymoronic, but they spent good money through J.L. Hudson's, the old department store in downtown Detroit, to outfit the ship with plush carpeting in the living quarters, not the cargo loads, obviously, wood-paneled walls, tiled bathrooms, TVs, air conditioners, when even very nice hotels did not have those five things in 1958. So you also had the biggest galley, that's the kitchen, all stainless steel, state of the art, when of course these guys are the best fed guys on the Great Lakes. So that's how you attract the best captain of the Great Lakes, Ernest McSorley, who was, and the best crew in the Great Lakes, and they want to stay on the ship. And also you entertain your VIPs in two staterooms right below the pilot house. Only two couples per trip can go on this thing. 5-day round trip from Minnesota to Toledo and back, basically. And that's how you keep your clients happy as well. So this ship never once had to wait for a cargo.
Let's talk about the crewmen. What were the everyday lives of these sailors like, and how did their lifestyle differ from coastal or oceanic mariners?
Sure. I got to tell you, Steve, that I'm from Michigan. I've sailed from Port Huron to Mackinac. I've been in all these lakes and so on, done a lot of stories. I didn't know a damn thing. So 95% of what's in this book I did not know 4 years ago, and I didn't know it. Shipping is a virtually invisible industry, and that kind of struck me. This is where your cement comes from in your basement, the car in your driveway, the food in your table, and yet we know almost nothing about these guys, and I wondered why. There's only 30 crew per ship, and they're only, in the heyday even, 300 ships out there at once. That's 9,000 people, and they're spread out over 8 states and the very large province of Ontario. So you're not going to meet these guys. And even if they live next door, you're not going to meet them because they're on a ship 9 months out of the year. So that's part of the equation. They leave in March or April, get on a ship. No weddings, no funerals, no graduations, none of that. You're staying for 9 straight months, and you get off in late December or January usually, and that's your life. And as one of the guys told me, I'm close to all 3 of my kids. I didn't teach any of them how to ride a bike or throw a baseball, and that's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But when his kids would see him, they come up and give him a big hug and say, "Daddy, you smell like a paycheck." And he'd say, "No, I smell like I'm sorry, I blew it." They said, "Daddy, you smell like a truck." And he'd say, "No, I smell like a paycheck." So it's funnier that way. Sorry. But
I lo-
anyway, the lives are pretty hard. You've got 13 different jobs on a 29-man crew, as on this ship. You work 4 hours off and 8 hours, 4 hours on and 8 hours off, and you keep that up around the clock.
Mm. Let's talk about weather. November 10th, 1975, the storm of the century. What made this storm so intense? And how did the Fitzgerald end up in such a vulnerable position here?
Great questions. A few things. One, on November 9th, 1975, the day the ship left Superior, Wisconsin, which is right next to Duluth, Minnesota, at the western tip of Lake Superior, it was 70 degrees. And you think that's great news. No, it's very bad news. So one factor is the longer winter it takes to arrive, the angrier it shows up. It's like water behind a dam. The more it increases, the worse it's going to be when it finally breaks. So that's one problem. It's going to break because of the Alberta Clipper, this storm system coming in from Western Canada, bringing cold, dry winds. And worse than that, another storm coming from the southwest of California up through Oklahoma, then to the Great Lakes, bringing hot, wet winds. And this clash is going to be bad. They clash right in front of Whitefish Bay. That's like the drain of your bathtub that is Lake Superior. And it sets up shop right in front of Whitefish Bay. That's safety, like a catcher in front of home plate. So when the Fitzgerald finally gets there first, about an hour ahead of the Anderson, the ship it was sailing with at that time, as one of my experts said, this ship ended up in the worst possible place at the worst possible time. And where they were was not just 30-foot waves and 60 mile per hour winds. That's again a storm of anyone's career. Where they were was 100 mile per hour winds and up to 60-foot waves. And this ship only has 11 feet out of the water in the first place. So you can imagine what that does to a ship.
Yeah. You mentioned him earlier. What did you learn about Captain Ernest McSorley that surprised you or challenged his public perception?
He was known as the greatest captain on the Great Lakes, and he truly was.
Hmm.
He was the best in rough weather, which is going to matter here. They said he was also the best pilot. And what that means is when Craig Sullivan, who'd been a cadet on the ship 3 years earlier, he said, I saw that man park 729 feet of steel between two other freighters with 5 feet on either side and not touch a damn thing, like he's basically parallel parking his Ford pickup truck. So that's how good he was. And surprisingly, perhaps, he was also beloved, which these captains usually were not.
Yeah.
An era where captains like football coaches could say and do almost anything to the people, throw hot coffee, yell and scream, all that business. He did not do any of those things. So they would follow him from ship to ship to ship on his way up the chain, basically, till finally they all got to the Edmund Fitzgerald. And 5 of them were about to retire after this season, after this trip, including Ernest McSorley, the captain. But he tacked on one more trip, 3 days down to Toledo. This is to pay for his wife's health care. She's in 24-hour health care in Toledo. And that's why he did it. So it's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. This book combines investigative reporting, maritime history, and deeply personal storytelling. What was the most challenging aspect of writing it?
Fitting it into 400 pages.
Yeah.
I actually wrote 800 pages. This thing went through 30 drafts. My books usually go through 10 or 15 drafts, so that was a record. I just kept trying to pare it. I had too much good stuff, frankly. So paring it down. What I try to keep was the human stories above all else. But you will find out new information about why the ship went down and also how the whole system works.
After 14 books now, including 5 New York Times bestsellers, where does this project rank for you in terms of scope and emotional impact?
I'm tempted to say scope, certainly number one, I would say. Emotional impact is right up there. Now, my personal book is Let Them Lead, about coaching a high school hockey team. I'll get that for you. A few years ago, I did that, and it's called Unexpected Lessons in Leadership from America's Worst High School Hockey Team. That, for me, is more emotional because these are my guys. And our assistant coach, Mike Lappridge, we lost him in the process, and the book is dedicated to him. So I would say that is number one for me, but this is a pretty close number 2 because I got to know these families so well and got to know their stories. So we all pulled tears more than once while doing this.
Do you feel this book finally brings closure or some clarity in a way previous accounts haven't been able to?
I wouldn't say closure in the usual sense because the mystery is going to persist. And as Aunt Ruth said, she's the mother of Bruce Hudson, a 22-year-old deckhand on the ship, her only child. She said, only 30 know, 29 men and God. And as I add, and no one's talking. So we'll never have complete closure as to what happened. But I think as far as the families are concerned, this goes a long way. And they feel very good about the book. They feel like their story's been told once and for all, basically. So as far as that goes, also 10 years from now, 15 years from now, a lot of folks I've talked to are going to be gone. I got to, 6 guys who were on the ship. Well, they're all in their 70s or 80s. I got to, 14 family members, or 14 families, I should say. Well, that's going to happen there too. The 2 guys who wrote the stories, Associated Press, Harry Atkins, and Newsweek magazine, Jim Gaines. Harry's in his 80s and Jim's in his 70s. And Two guys in the band, for crying out loud, the bass player Rick Haynes and the drummer Barry Keane. If you try this book 10, 15 years from now, you can't get them all. So I felt in that sense we do have the definitive account because we have more people who are attached to this speaking for the first time and maybe the last time we can get them.
John, I want you to get a wider lens here. What can the story of the Mighty Fitz teach us about risk, resilience, and human nature?
It's a scary world out there. It's risky. And this is automatically a dangerous occupation no matter what you do. Even though not one ship has gone down since this ship went down, which is pretty incredible, when 6,000 went down for a century, zero for half a century. And it's because of the Fitz. As one of my experts said, when do you fix anything? When it's broken. So this, like 9/11 or Titanic, woke up the whole industry and it changed. But it's still a dangerous occupation. And I guess for me, looking at the broad scope, as you asked, like I said, the cement in your basement, the car in your driveway, the food on your table, it all comes from these ships and we don't know it. So I think of Samuel Johnson years ago in Perfect Storm. He says that it's not fish you're buying, it's men's lives. And in that sense, it's kind of true, even when it's safer now. They devote their lives to delivering these goods. So that's what you're really buying, men's lives.
He's John U. Bacon. The new book, The Gales of November, The Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, is available now wherever books are sold. It is a powerful, deeply researched, and moving tribute to the 29 men lost and the families who carry their legacy. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Steve, thank you. You can find out more at johnnubacon.com, where to order it, and of course, also my book tour as well.
All right. And thank you for watching and listening to the Speaking of Writers podcast. Like it, share it, subscribe to it, write a review. I'm Steve Richards. I'll talk to you again next time.